Yo, what's up, bro? You here because you want to learn more about King Krule? Don't worry, I got you. The other producers with the short attention spans couldn't make it past this far. The fact that you're on this video, either you like me enough to stay all the way to the end to know about this video, or two, you are not brain fried like the rest of the world. And so we'll call the other producers Timmy. We'll keep this secret between us, okay? So don't comment down on my comments that all the Timmys have left, all the Timmys left. Just keep it between us, okay? Shh. This is just a secret between you and I. So since you're here, I want to reward you with as much information that I could synthesize about King Krule. And yeah, so I hope you're excited, because I'm excited to give you this masterclass. It took me a long time to get all the information, and now I'm gonna give it to you all in one video. Before we get into that, let me tell you a little bit about my story. I started producing since late 2017, so it's about 5.5+ years right now. And each and every year of my music production journey, I've always told myself that I wanted to know music theory. I wanted to get better because I know that music theory is actually extremely important. Even though my brain just couldn't find the joy and like it couldn't understand whatever I was reading. Like, you know those like music theory books which are like this thick, and whenever you read them you just kind of like break down. So that's how I always felt like it was too boring or too difficult to understand. And the fact that you're here means you either like me enough that we are pretty similar, so I'm gonna assume that you also have a similar issue with music theory where it's either too boring or too difficult to understand. So the point of this video is actually to still teach you music theory, but in my way, so that I believe you can understand better instead of just some thick ass book telling you what to do. I'm gonna help you with that, and if I understand what I know from this, I'm sure you can also understand and benefit and make better beats, or make better King Krule beats in this example. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. So before we start, again, the prerequisites would be having a guitar and also this book called The Incredible Chord Finder Hell Let It. Actually, you don't really specifically need this book. This is just the book that I have. So having a guitar is extremely important because a lot of the VSTs you get, guitar VSTs, they don't sound the best, they don't sound the most natural. So yeah, it's way better to get a guitar. You don't have to invest too heavily. I know my boy, Mama's boy, he invested in a guitar that was relatively cheap and he's still making good beats with it. So as long as you get a guitar, that's good. And the book that I told you just now was this chord finder book. I find this useful because then I don't have to go online and search up all the chords that I need. If I need a D9, I just go to like a D9 page over here and you can just see there's like all the different chords here. There are many different types of books, I'm sure, but this is the one I have. And yeah, I'll link it down in the description for you to buy if you want. I don't have an affiliate link, or maybe I'm gonna get an affiliate link. But yeah, just buy this or buy any other like chord finding book. It's extremely useful, I promise you. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is the 80-20 rule. So the 80-20 rule, which if you've never heard of, is what it says is that 20% of your actions actually determine 80% of your outcomes. So if you look at the diagram here, a lot of the things that you do in life, 80% of your results and achievement actually come from only 20% of what you do. So we can even use this principle in music production and in King Krule's music, which is why, so everything that I'm teaching you is, I believe, is the 20% that makes the 80% of the King Krule's outcome. So keep that in mind. I'll be talking about it quite a bit. To be honest, even the guitar, having a guitar is part of the 80-20 rule, because 20%, like you're just not able to sound, you just won't be able to have a guitar sound good when it's MIDI. So that's part of it. But just keep this in mind as we go through this masterclass. So as I said, we're gonna go through a little bit of music theory. So please don't be afraid because I managed to understand it. So I'm gonna definitely teach you in a way which you can understand. So music theory. Okay, so this is the basics. What you need to know is that in 99% of Western music, things tend to occur in 2s, 4s, or 8s. So what I mean by that is the 2 bars, 4 bars, or 8 bars. So I'm sure you are familiar with this. You've definitely been stuck in an 8-bar loop yourself. I've been. Your other friends have probably stuck in 8-bar loop. So we all know that music, at least the music that we mostly produce, are in 2s, 4s, and 8s, right? This doesn't apply to actually King Krule. So a large chunk of his music actually doesn't follow this principle. Briefly put a list right now here so you can see of the music of the songs that I've managed to find that are not in 2s, 4s, and 8s. And you can see that this is extremely prevalent in King Krule's music. From what I understand, he's a big fan of the Pixies, and they also don't really follow the conventional song structure. So why is this important? It's because it plays a big part in how you feel when you listen to his music. Because we're so used to listening to music in 8s, 4s, and 8s, we get a little uncomfortable when we start veering out of the norm. This is not to say that no music in the world does this. A lot of music outside of the Western music actually doesn't really follow this and starts making beats in, not beats, but music in 3 or 8, 5 bars. So it's not exactly very out of the norm, but from what I understand, Western music is deeply rooted in 4 and 8 bars. So you are just extremely used to listening to music in 8 bars. So when King Krule starts deviating from it, we start getting a little uncomfortable. So just keep that in mind. So if you don't believe me, I'm going to use this song Underclass as the case study for today. In my other video, I briefly went through it, but in this video, we're going to go deep dive and shit. So keep in mind that the key is in A major and the BPM is 65 BPM. So the key, A major. So the song Underclass is actually majority a 2-5-1. I'm sure you know what a 2-5-1 is. 2-5-1 is the most common jazz progression in music. This is not to say that it's useless or that it's bad or that it's only like for lo-fi producers. Just don't meme it, because once you understand how to use the 2-5-1, making jazz chord progressions is actually very simple. Because this is kind of like the basics. This is kind of like the dumbbell press, or even like the wood cutting in games. So this is like you just need this. You need to know a little bit about how chords work in music theory. So in the A major key, this as you see right now, this is the chords in an A major key that are in key. These are the chords in the A major key. And we can see here that A major is the 1 chord, B minor is the 2nd chord, C sharp minor is the 3rd chord, D major the 4th chord, and then we go on, right? For the key of A major, it will always be like this. So for example, there's another key. The 1st chord will always be a major, the 2nd chord will always be a minor, the 3rd chord will always be a minor, and then yada yada yada, and the last chord will always be a diminished. Yeah, so the minor key will also have its similar pattern. I don't know off by heart right now, but yeah, just keep in mind that I will always follow this rule. So as I said, we were talking about the 2-5-1 is the most popular jazz progression, the most popular chord progression in jazz. It's not just for lo-fi producers, it's actually just the raw basics of jazz progressions, which King Krule actually uses it in Underclass. So let's get back to song structure, because we just went over the key and stuff. This is Underclass, and as you can see here, the intro is 5 bars long, the verse is 7 bars long, and then it kind of just, so altogether it's about 12 bars, and then it just loops. So that's actually the way the song is structured out. It's very out of the normal for sure. So let's take a look at the intro first. So in the intro, what we can say is that the intro starts off with the C sharp minor 9th chord, and this is actually the 3rd chord in the A major key progression. The C minor 6 is played there because he starts off on using passing chords where it's kind of like, so remember that I said that the 2 chord is the start of the progression. So the fact that the C sharp minor chord is the 3rd chord, that means he's kind of like a step down to the progression, to the start of the progression, right? So in this case it works. So that's why you don't feel like it's too out of the place when he does this. And even at the end, so you see here, he starts off with a passing chord, C sharp minor, C minor 6, and then B minor 9. So it's kind of like he starts down on the staircase and then he starts off with the chord progression. So then it starts with a 2, it starts with a 2, then goes to the E9, which is the 5th chord in the A key, and then the A major 7, which is the 1 chord because it's an A major, right? And you're gonna see that here he actually then plays a B flat major 7. So what is a B flat major 7 in this context? And then he plays the A major 7 again. So in this intro it kind of sounds resolved because he ends it on the resolve. So I think that's one thing you can learn from this song, is that he always ends each bar on the resolve chord. So I'll show you later, even in the verse as well. So why does the B flat major chord work in this scenario? It's because the A major 7 and the B flat major 7 share one note actually in a chord, so it doesn't sound too out of place. The other reason actually, it's that this is actually a form of a term I just learned called the contrapuntal elaboration of static harmony, CASH for short. I know it's a fucking tongue twister, but this is another thing, this is another piece of music theory that is for jazz, and you can kind of think of it like a 2D game where the chord doesn't move but one of the notes in the chord moves. So it's like a 2D game where you can move left and right, but except you're on the same plane. You get what I mean? Like, you know those 2D games that you used to play, like Maple Story, what's the other ones that would be like I love to play, the one with the guns, Metal Slug? Yeah, like games like that where it's 2D, you can only move left and right but you're on the same plane. So think of it like that. A good example for this is actually James Bond, where the C minor chord is being played constantly but the 5th keeps moving. I'll play the example right now. Yeah, so you see that it's actually the same chord being played but his one finger is moving. So shout out to that guy that made that video, because without it we won't see the key and it just makes it so much easier to look at it. So yeah, that's why the B flat major works here. So keep that in mind, contrapunt cash. Just keep that cash in mind. And then the next thing we'll go to is that we go to the verse. Again, the verse is 7 bars long. So it's very out of the normal. So that's why we feel so uncomfortable when we listen to Underclass, because it's just not, it's not 4s or it's not 8s. So we feel a little uncomfortable. The verse starts with a 2-5-1 as usual, and it's over 4 bars. So in this section we actually feel quite relaxed, feels quite normal. So I'll play this section.
I've had enough, lover, of what you think of me.
So it feels really relaxed, right? It doesn't feel so uncomfortable and out of place. And then the bullshit of him just playing a bunch of different chords starts. So it's extremely weird because he starts playing the 2-5-1 for like 3 bars and then for 4 bars he plays passing chords that are 1 semitone in between D major and E major. So the chords, they don't sound too out of place because they're all next to each other. So you'll see that he plays the E flat 7, which is 1 semitone away from E major and 1 semitone away from D major. So it's in between the 2 chords in the key that makes sense. So he plays that, he then plays the D major 9, and then he plays the E flat 9 and then the B6 9 chord. So the B6-9 chord is interesting because from what I've learned from Adam Neely, so shout out Adam Neely, I'm gonna link his video in the description for you to understand it more, because I think he explains it much better. But from what I understand, the 6-9 chord is just like a less spicier sounding resolve. And so the chord you play for 6-9 would sound a lot more resolved and just a lot less tense, whilst when you play the actual resolve, it sounds a lot more tense. But because of the 9th, it lets the chord still kind of progress into the resolve. So you don't have to think about it too much, but the chord works here and you can kind of use it as well in your own music. So I would suggest that before you go back to the resolve, maybe put a 6-9 chord. Maybe learn how to play a 6-9 chord on your guitar and then just add it before you resolve. And people will be like, whoa, you King Krule, man? Or like, whoa, you're such a jazz guitarist, bro. Like, bro, sick. I'll play you later a song, you probably think the same thing of me, but honestly, I'm just using what I've learned from King Krule. We're gonna go away from the presentation for a bit to come to my project where I made a beat kind of like sounding like King Krule, and this is actually what I made with what I've learned from that song. Okay, I'm sorry, I can't show you the full thing on this screen because my computer is just fucking shit. But, so what's going on in this beat, Ken, that you might ask? Well, I'm honestly using the same concept as Underclass, where I start with a passing chord. So in this song in particularly is in E major. Remember what I said just now, where King Krule at the start of his beats kind of like starts with a 3 and goes down to the 2. I did the same thing here, and let's just use the Rhodes for this part. This is the 3 chord. 2, 5, 1. Passing chord. 1, 2, 5, 1. Right? So again, 2, 5, 1. It's a very nice chord progression, right? I managed to make it, so no excuses for you to not be able to do that, because all I did was use what I learned from King Krule's song, which is 2-5-1. It's just a 2-5-1, and I'm just adding passing chords in between to make the chord progression sound even more full and just even like,
wow, Ken, you're such a jazz cool guy, bro. You're such a jazz bro. Oh my god.
There's no jazz and I don't know any music theory, but I know this style, and after knowing this, I'm gonna be using this in a lot of my beats, and I feel like it's gonna sound a lot better now. Yeah, I'm not special. Like, you just do the same thing. Like, you don't exactly have to follow exactly what King Krule does, but I suggest 2-5-1, and in between the chords, the 2-5-1 chords, just start adding passing chords that are inside the key, or even just like, yeah, just do what King Krule does, where passing chord and then goes back to the 5, passing chord and goes back to the 1. It's simple. Like, it made me like know what to do now. I used to not know. So I believe that the reason why this song works so well is because he always ends on the resolve. There are many jazz chord progressions that you can follow online. 2-5-1 is the most basic one, which is always kind of means like the best. But you could kind of use this same thought process with all the other jazz chord progressions, where in between the chord progression you just add little bits of passing chords here and there. So that's really it you need to know about the chord sides of music theory. Well, the next thing I want to talk about is that King Krule is a very polarizing artist, and this is actually something that you can also do in terms of how you make music. The reason why King Krule is so polarizing is because he has a variety of different styles. So one song could feature atmospheric guitars that make you sound like you're in space. The next song could make you want to jump into a mosh pit with just screaming ass vocals, and then suddenly you could be playing microtonal madness and you're just kind of like, what the fuck am I listening to? So King Krule is extremely polarizing. You can't really, he does have a particular style, but he has so many different styles that it's, yeah, he's a very polarizing character, right? He's either like depressed with his deep voice or screaming into a mic with his like high pitched screaming. So you can kind of learn to do that by, one, listen to more music, two, incorporate, just get out of your comfort zone, which is always a very good thing. And yeah, those two things, and you can probably be a very polarizing artist in that sense. So let's talk about his different styles. And as I said just now, I talked about his atmospheric style. So his atmospheric, his can't fucking speak out of nowhere. His atmospheric style, ambient style songs are kind of like Underclass, Energy Fleets, Please Complete Thee, The Locomotive, Lonely Blue, and there's a lot more, but I'll probably just not finish this presentation if I just listed out all of them. So how does he do it? Dreamy guitar riffs, soft drones, and deep vocals. And the effects that I would recommend, which is free, is Valhalla Supermassive. It's a free plugin from Valhalla, and it's very good. It's like a delay plugin. It's extremely well. I used it in my beat, and I'll show you later. And yeah, so how does he do it? We'll look at the 80-20 rule, dreamy guitar riff. So what do you do to achieve dreamy guitar riffs, Ken? Well, 20% of the work actually comes from the chord that you select itself. A lot of the chords that King Krule selects are 7, 9s, 11s, not standard like guitar chords. I guess, let me quickly show you an example. All right, so we'll quickly go through this. We're talking about the D chord. So this is just a normal D chord, the open bar D chord. Right? So that's how the D normally sounds like. When we start playing chords like D7, you hear that it starts sounding very different. So this is the D7 chord. It already sounds a lot jazzier and it's just a lot more open. Then we start going to the D7 chords, the D9 chord. And we go to the D9. Dude. Sorry, this is a D11. D9. D7. And just a normal D chord. You hear the difference? Yo, yeah, sorry, my camera died. A little bit annoying, but let's get right into it. So, okay, so let's talk about. So I was talking about picking chords that are either 7, 9s, or 11 because it makes a huge difference. And I believe that it's better to show, not tell. So I made two different versions of what I played previously. I played one where I played all the 7 and the 9, which is the original beat, and then the other, the fourth and fifth track, I played just standard chords, which so instead of the E major 9, for example, on the resolve, I play just like the E. Yeah, I think I played this one. Let's do an E. So they're not like 9 or 7 chords, and you definitely hear a difference. Effects are the same. I didn't do anything else besides just not EQ it. Effects are the same, and you tell me if you hear a difference, all right? So this is the first one. Okay, so that's the first one. This is the second version. Maybe my playing will be a little bit bad as well, but here it goes. What do you think? I'm gonna delete it because I just hate it already. But just the chord itself, just picking the chord itself already makes a huge difference in terms of how it actually sounds like in the song. And this is part of the 80-20 rule that I want you to like just get in your mind. Like always look at what you could do with the least amount of effort for the maximum amount of like product, or like the best product, the 80% of the least amount of effort for the most amount of gain. Or there's a better way to say it, but yeah, just keep that in mind. Always think, what is the 80-20 rule that I can do in terms of my production? Should I just keep adding more percussions so it makes it bouncier? No, because after a certain amount of percussions, like the bounce is gonna be there already. You don't need to overcomplicate shit. Don't overthink shit, right? As Kenny Beats always says. And yeah, picking 7, 9, 11 chords will definitely make your song sound a lot jazzier without even you trying much in terms of effects. The next thing I want to talk about is just effects and what you can use in terms of making your chords sound, I guess, a little bit more nicer. So here are the effects that I use. If you like this is exactly what I did. I have the Cory Wong Archetype 80s Pop Chorus preset used, the Phaser Flanger, and then I just put a Valhalla Supermassive. And not a lot of it, because otherwise it'll just go too crazy. And then I kind of like have Valhalla Room, a little bit of Valhalla Room, and a little bit of Echo Boy. If you don't actually have Archetype, my pedal board actually does a very good job already. Except it might be a little low. For some reason, my pedal board is like very quiet. Oh, it's also minus 27. Let's put up to minus 10. Okay, so if you don't have Cory Wong, you can also use the pedal board that I previously gave out for free. I'll link it down in the description for you as well. It's just easier for you. It's free. All you have to do is just download it, give me your email, and I'll send it to you via email. And I found a very good, like, even my thing kind of works. You can play around with the other presets. So the beauty about this preset or this pedal board is that you can actually go in and adjust the settings according to your liking. I always encourage you to not just copy and paste someone else's like settings, because you end up all just sounding the same, which if that's what you want, cool. But I highly recommend you kind of go into my pedal board and just start fucking around with the song and with the settings, because worst case scenario, you can just reload it and all the settings will be back. So don't worry about that. I just kind of put this to make your life easier when you use the pedal board. But yeah, even my pedal board works. I believe it might be because of this. That's why it sounds so low. Yeah. Right. So if you don't want too much phaser, for example, turn it off, or go here and start kind of reducing it with the dry wet. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities you can use, but Valhalla Supermassive will make it a lot nicer. If you don't have it, it sounds like this. Depends on what you want, right? The other thing that I use as well, using ArtGrad's video, I'm going to link it down in the description as well for you to watch if you want to know even more. But he taught me this minor third down preset using the grain delay, and I kind of use parallel processing, and so that I don't hear it too much, and I can kind of control how much of the effect I want. So of just the sound, it sounds like this. So it's just kind of like extra effects that you can add. I personally kind of like the effect. If you don't, then just don't follow it. And yeah, but mainly chorus, phaser, reverb is literally all you need. In my other guitar pedalboard video, I explained why reverb is extremely important when you play your guitar. If you don't want to watch it, just briefly, it's because it makes the guitar sound a lot more realistic. And yeah, so that's pretty much it for the dreamy-ish sound. The next thing I want to go to is his aggressive sounding beats. So like songs like Dumb Surfer, Stone Again, Comet Face. Yeah, it's aggressive vocals, distorted bass lines, and mostly just like really bouncy drum breaks. The effects, if you have Ableton, it's actually very simple. You can honestly use just these 4 effects and maybe Redux if you want to achieve a very nice sounding bass line. Just quickly, let me show you a beat that I made that is using the beat I made that kind of sounds like King Krule, and the bass line is just, or you can let me know if it doesn't sound nice or mwah for you. But yeah, and honestly, I use Decapitator, but I'm going to show you that just using Ableton presets, like it's so good already. You hear that? That sounds fucking gritty as fuck, my guy. So how do you find the effects, Ken, if you're asking? Just type in bass into your search bar and go to your audio effects, and you can go look like pedal front of stage. That's the one that I use. Bass roundup, which is here, and then the most important thing is cabinet. It's like, it acts like an auto filter to make it sound like an actual guitar. Saturator to bring out the distortion. So without saturator and dirt and grit, it sounds like this. Right, so yeah, that's it for the aggressive sounding styles that he uses. The next thing I want to talk about is his microtonal music, so beats like Sublunary and like Cadet Leaps. How does he do it? I think he does it by either not tuning his guitars or purposely tuning his guitar out of tune. I know that certain songs of his, I can't remember which song, I'll play it and you will know. This song is purposely tuned out of tune. Like when I was learning it, I think it's called Emergency Blimp. So I know that Emergency Blimp is purposely out of tune because when I tried to learn a song, I had to tune the E string to between D and D sharp, which is not even like a drop D, or not even like, it's not even a drop D. It's just it's not even D or D sharp. It's literally in between the two notes, which is what micro tuning is. So yeah, to achieve the same results, you would have to start out tuning your guitars on purpose. Or if you want to start using MIDI to make like drones or like synth pad, if you're on Ableton, a very good plugin or effect is actually called the Micro Tuner. The C to Stage did a very good video on it. You can go watch that. I personally am not very well versed with this Micro Tuner, so I haven't really tried. And yeah, that's it for the production side of this masterclass. I believe these are the most important bits of King Krule's music that you really should pay attention to and like add it to your arsenal. And the next thing I want to talk about, well, the next thing that my friend Gen Z is going to talk about is actually the lyrics. So if you're interested in that, keep watching.
Hi, my name's Jensen, or Jency Jack, and today I'm going to be talking about King Krule's lyrics. I've been listening to King Krule for about 2 or 3 years now. You know, I started with the classics. Everyone's got to listen to Baby Blue, Out Getting Ribs, and Easy Easy and stuff like that. Then I started to delve deeper. I listened to Man Alive, and the rest of his discography, and I just fell in love. Like, I just love the music, and I feel like it's so special. And even listening to all of it for 3 years and not really having much new material since then, it's still magic to me. You know, it's still really special. I still can't really deconstruct it. I find something new every single time, and that's like some cheesy shit, but it's true as hell. So yeah, and I feel like part of that magic is the lyrics. So I feel like that is for 3 central reasons, right? For one, you have the authenticity and the honesty in his lyrics. Now, this might sound like bullshit, because a lot of his lyrics feature a lot of metaphors and abstractions of situations or scenes or relationships or feelings that King Krule is trying to express. But the thing about these abstractions is that they surround a central core feeling or idea that King Krule's trying to express. And what these abstractions do is, number one, they enhance the emotion or idea, feeling, whatever you're trying to express. Surrounding it or creating an abstraction around it will not enhance it if you choose the right one. Number 2 is it makes it easier to understand, right? If King Krule were to bring up a bunch of really personal names, numbers, locations, all that stuff, you would find it a lot harder to understand. And placing into something like an abstraction or a common metaphor, an archetype, can make it a lot more perverse in its value and understanding. Not to say that personal things don't have value, but to say that people are going to understand things a lot easier if you use something that's common. And if that's something you are wanting to do, you're wanting your music to connect with people relatively easily, that's something I would recommend. But if you don't want to, you don't have to do any of this stuff. Okay? Secondly is his literary influences, right? King Krule's previously named Franz Kafka, W.H. Auden, and Charles Bukowski. These are all incredibly prolific and intelligent, almost legendary writers that have done a lot for literature. And what's interesting about them is that they all have different styles, right? But where I feel his style sort of merges is the Franz Kafka and the Charles Bukowski, right? So King Krule takes normal, everyday things like Charles Bukowski would write about. He would be very straight, very honest, very direct, when surrounds them in the abstractions, just like we were talking earlier. That's something Franz Kafka would do. A story like Metamorphosis, for example. And the third thing, the final thing, is the romance contrasting with the intimacy. And this is the main thing we'll be focusing on today, and I'm going to talk about in a few of my favorite lyrics. So let's get it. First, we got a lyric from the song Underclass. He says, "Kept my head above your intimacy, unsteadily your putrid ooze would swallow me." First off, this is almost like a hip-hop song in the way, like, those syllables are perfect, bro. That is good prose right there in a good verse. And what he's describing here is sort of a scene where he's drowning in someone else's love and affection and connection, right? He's so lost and confused by this idea of a genuine connection that it feels like it's suffocating him. And that's something I feel like a lot of people who can be quite isolated and distant and lonely can relate to. And it's a good way as well. You're drowning. Everyone knows what it feels like to be uncomfortable and suffocating. To use that to explain that the way he feels about the situation is incredibly intelligent and is a lot more difficult than you think. Moving on, my next example is the C4th song. This dropped in around April and is off the brand new record Space Heavy, which is out June 9. And he says this: "I take her waist within my hands, and when I wake, she melts away into the sand." He's sort of dealing with a sense of loss and grief from the intimacy from this person, or the love that he was feeling from this person, and describes an intimate moment like taking a person's waist into your hands and then just having that just slip from your fingertips like sand falling from your hands. You know, that's a lot of people have been to the beach, right? People know what sand does. You hold sand, it falls out, you know, it's not solid. So this connection that he had is no longer a solid, tangible thing. It's just a dream. And when you wake up, it just fades away and slips through your fingers and all that stuff. So that's a really great way to describe a disconnect that's created in your life. And has that abstraction, the dream, you know, the metaphor of, or the visual of someone melting into sand with that central feeling of loss and longing for, you know, intimacy. the last one I'm going to talk about is Cadet Limbo. This shit is a grower. If this shit sounds like arse to you when you first bump it, I completely get that. But it sounds like fucking heaven to me now. Like, great chord progression, good bass line, great drums on this song. You know, there's great drums all over. The first record, drums are okay. The drums are okay. The ooze, bro. Some of these songs got great drums, and then I feel like he's mastered his drums, man alive. I think he does it. He does have another person on the production, but great drums on most of his music, right? He says this: I walked across you every day as I floated along, spent most of my time orbiting your waist, and had it really been this long since I got lost in space? Has it really been this long since I've had this bond? And this is sort of an interesting thing where he's talking about being in space. You know, he brings up the character of the space cadet along on this album. You can see the space cadet, at least my thing is, you can see the space cadet flying right here. And that's the point of this image, right? He's lost. He's like an explorer in uncharted territory. So he's floating around in space. It's just a vast emptiness, contrasting it with the, you know, very tangible idea of someone's waist. It's an intimate part of a person's body, you know? And I feel like that's such an excellent contrast that really expresses how he feels, you know, because he's lost and he's confused and he's floating around in a massive empty void, but this person allows him gravity and allows him to stick somewhere. So he's orbiting around the most intimate pieces and parts of this person. Just got a few tips to close out. To do this, you must write honestly and vulnerably. If you are being defensive, no one is going to judge you. You know, they can't judge you. You're a musician, right? If they're going to judge you, they're going to judge you. It's just, that's just going to go on forever. You know what I mean? It's like the world turning, the world's going to forever turn. People are going to forever judge you for who you are. But that's the thing, is that you have to express yourself honestly and vulnerably. And that is incredibly important. You need to look deep within yourself and find images and, you know, scenes that remind you of maybe your best or your worst memories, and just create a movie, like a movie scene or a visual around that stuff, and describe it through words. That happens quite often. And my last tip, and this is the most difficult, is going out and being adventurous and trying to find literature or ideas, you know, movies, films, anything can give you lyrical inspiration. Go out and fucking live life. Get some bitches. Figure it out. And, you know, you'll be able to come back with a more clear mind, and you'll be able to write down how you're feeling. And once you can do that and you can turn it into lyrics, it's one of the most freeing things you can ever do. So yeah, that's all I got to say about the subject. Shout out to King Krule. Thanks, Ken. Shout out to you watching. All love.
If you've lasted this far and you're still watching, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that you care about me enough to watch all the way until this part. You really are part of this cult, which is why I'm about to tell you my goal for this YouTube channel. I don't view myself as an entertainment YouTuber. In fact, this channel is actually a movement to help creatives like you achieve their goal of making money and living off what they love to do, which is to create music. I will start to post a lot of productivity videos for us music producers, so how to be productive and stuff like that, and also just learning lessons that I get from my journey as a music producer and a content creator on this online space. I believe that each and every one of us have the ability to escape wage slavery, to do things that we truly care about, like our purpose of life, right? So this is my life purpose, and I feel that the fact that you're on this video as well, it means that making music is also your life purpose. A quote that I really love is, whether you can or whether you can't, whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. And on that note, that's the end of the masterclass. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you next week. Peace.